the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I have to say something. I wish I could tell you I had a really good dating after divorce experience, but I just can't. I jumped into the dating scene with no compass and no idea of why I was dating, what I wanted, what I needed, or what I deserved. Because I felt so lost, I dated so many people who weren't right for me and often found myself disappointed and frustrating. Boy, do I wish I would have known about Lori Gerber. Lori is a dating after divorce coach who has spent 20 years helping people get ready to date, figure out what they want in dating, and show up as their best selves on dates so they can achieve the best possible experience. Love Lori. I'm so excited to have her as a Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professional. And if you want to learn more, you can find her at lorigerber.com. I also want to tell you about a wonderful divorce attorney in Massachusetts. Her name is Catherine Becker Good, and I've known Catherine now for a few years, and I absolutely trust her and think she's a great lawyer. And I've heard that from many, many other people. She's been practicing for over 30 years. What I love about Catherine is that she's very calm, she's very logical, she doesn't get emotional, but yet she's very warm and you'll feel very cared about if you hire her as your attorney. If you want to learn more about Catherine, she can be found on her website, cbgoodlaw.com, and you can find both Catherine and Lori in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. It's just as easy to fall in love with a rich man as it is to fall in love with a poor man. Sound familiar? It's probably something that your mother or your grandmother said to you. I know that was said to me when I was young. But if you ask anybody who's in their 40s or 50s, or even in their 30s, it's hard to meet anyone, whether they have money or not. But I am so excited to have this conversation today. We're going to talk about men with no money and the red flags that they carry. And by the way, not all men with no money are not good men. There are some wonderful men with no money, but there's big differences. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I love my guest. Her name is Amanda Campbell. Amanda is a financial advisor for WealthSpire. She's a Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professional. She's married with a couple kids. She probably, I'm going to ask her in a minute, but probably did a lot of dating before she got married. But I want to say one thing about Amanda's business. Amanda specializes in helping women during and after divorce. Amanda can hold your hand through your entire divorce, help you make financial decisions, and really offer this wonderful sense of support. And also, I forgot to mention that she's a CDFA, a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is going to be a fun one.
I know. I'm so excited. So did you date a lot before you were married?
Actually, no. I had one very serious long-term boyfriend who was 6 years older than me. So we can get into all of that. I mean, like I've seen the poor man, rich, like whatever. And then I met my husband in college and we've been
Okay, I knew you were going to say that. As I was saying, Amanda probably dated a lot, thinking, how do you know? Maybe she didn't. And I had a feeling you were going to say that. I don't know why. But I know that in your business, working with women going through a divorce and after divorce, they probably tell you a lot of their dating stories.
I always joke I could write a book about dating horrors being the least experienced dated person. Like, I just yes, it is, but I laugh. Like, I love it. My clients will, like, pour themselves a glass of wine and we talk about it, and I'm like, "What a train wreck."
And isn't it so nice though that when you see them fall in love?
It's my honest to God, seeing a woman cross that bridge to financial empowerment, feeling really good about her money, feeling confident enough in herself to get back out into the dating pool, and then watching that woman fall in love with who not only she is, but a strong partner. Oh my God, it's just the best.
Yes, it is. I love when I get emails from women who will say to me, I don't know if you remember me, but I emailed you when I was first getting divorced. And then, like, literally 4 or 5 years later, they'll email me and they'll say, you were right. I fell in love. I'm so happy, blah, blah, blah. So they definitely feel the need, a lot of them, to tell me their story.
Yes.
All right, so let's get into these men with no money. So I want to tell my listeners I wrote this article for Divorce Girl Smiling called There Are Men with No Money, and there are also men with no money. So they're two very different things. But we want to talk about some of the red flags to look for if you are just starting to date or you're dating and you're not having success having to do with money. The first man who you should beware of is the gambler. Now, we know that every man I know, anyway, really is into betting on sports. You go to Vegas, it's all the guys around the tables. I don't have a problem with gambling, but I have a problem with when gambling interferes with your financial situation. Ever encounter that with anybody, Amanda?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a story at our firm actually where a client, the husband was gambling, wife didn't know about it. Long story short, they had to completely deplete their entire portfolio, which was well into the millions, just because it got away from him. Um, and she was hurt. It wasn't just about the money, right? She was hurt from a place of, oh my God, you were keeping this huge secret because somebody who's gambling like that, they're not being forthcoming. That is
Right.
not something that they are completely open and honest about. But number two, that this person, her husband, had completely forsaken their entire life plan, their financial plan. And I think if you go into dating, if you are going into a relationship knowing this person has that part of them that enjoys gambling, kind of enjoys being a little bit riskier, fine, that's all well and good. I can't imagine a world in which that wouldn't create problems somewhere down the line.
So maybe have the conversation before you get married or get serious with the person and really trust your gut. You may really, really love this person, but if your gut is telling you they have a problem, please beware, is what we're saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and, I think the other really important conversation to have with somebody who has, you know, a gambling proclivity, I guess, is a good word for it. Um, Maybe keep your money completely separate at the end of the day. Money stays completely separate, right? There should be no discussion about intermingling or, if you decide that commingling money is the best, there's got to be a stop limit or some kind of account where you say this is the gambling account, no other accounts can be touched. I'm not 100% sure how you'd enforce that, but I think like anything when you're dating, going into a relationship, you need to have really solid guardrails in place, especially if you're post divorce. You already know what you will and will not tolerate.
And you probably already have children if you're post divorce. So now there's that to consider too. It's not just you.
Absolutely.
See, these are the kinds of things that Amanda, as your financial advisor, could help you with. Let's say somebody's getting remarried and you're their financial advisor. These are the kinds of conversations you probably have with them.
Absolutely. We talk about everything, everything, everything. I always say, at the end of the day, I'm your girlfriend who just knows about finance. Like, let's talk about everything as you re-enter the dating pool because you're going to come across stuff that you might not have seen before, right? Gambling, right? Who would have thought you might have really like started to like somebody who likes to go to Vegas and likes to do all these things that may feel new to you. Let's just come up with a plan for it. It doesn't mean that you need to ghost them, tell them you'll never see them again. Let's just come up with a plan for how you're going to have that conversation, how you're going to protect what you advocated for in the divorce, your assets.
Okay, let's move on to the second red flag, the non saver. So I actually have experience with this from an ex boyfriend who made a lot of money, had a great job, and basically just got his paycheck and blew it all. Like, I was like, "Wait a minute." At the time he was in his 40s, I'm like, "You don't have any savings?" So, let's talk about that. Like, first of all, it'd be hard to have respect for somebody who didn't have any savings, but also, like, do you really wanna be with somebody who doesn't have money because they just aren't financially even aware at all?
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes further than that. Do you want to start a relationship with somebody that you absolutely will be financially caring for 10, 20, 30 years down the line? Because there's, unless they hit the lottery, right? Like, so we're talking post divorce, like, are they really starting from scratch to start saving, right? We all know the earlier you start saving, the better. So I think if you enter a relationship with somebody like that, you have to immediately own and wear the fact that you will be their retirement.
Oh my gosh, that is such a good example because I know this woman and she was in her 50s and she started dating this guy and he was a really nice guy, but he had no money and she was considering marrying him. And I said to her, "Listen, you may never want to be friends with me again, but I have to say this to you. What if this guy, God forbid, has a stroke? He has no health insurance and no money. Are you going to be his caregiver? Are you going to pay for his caregiver or a combination of both? Is that something you want to take on?" Maybe somebody will say yes, but guess what? The girl is not with that guy anymore.
And I,
And
right.
it
Right.
might sound really mean, and you might think that if you're listening to this, think I'm a terrible, horrible person, but I'm just saying you have to really look at the realities of this.
Absolutely. And I agree with you, Jackie. Like, it's not one size fits all. Like, I have a client who's post divorce. She is with somebody who does not have money. But we've had the conversation, and I think that's the important thing, where I've looked at her and I'm like, gonna call her Jane. Jane, like, just so you know, you're his retirement plan. I want you to understand that. I want you to feel comfortable with that. I want, right? Like, and they didn't sign a prenup. Her whole thing is, I know that and I'm comfortable with it. And thank you for having the conversation. I understand how this may or may not change my financial plan in the future. And I think that's what all this is, right? Like, you just got to wear that. You got to own
And
it.
guess what? Guys do it all the time. Why can't a woman support a man if that's what she wants?
Amen. Amen. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the non-saver. I mean, besides the fact that, like, I truly believe everybody should save. I think it's insane when people don't. Um, but if that's the life you're choosing, I always say you can't get mad, right? 20, 30 years down the line, say, "Oh my God, he never saved a thing." Babe, you knew. You knew.
Right. Right. And the problem with this guy I was dating was that I didn't have respect because I
Yeah.
wow, you have this really good job. You should have like a few $100,000 in your bank account. That's how much money he was making
Yeah. And
and had been making it the whole time. It wasn't like a new job or anything.
it's so funny. I see this a lot actually. When you make a lot of money, you spend a lot of money, right? And it's just the way it is. Um, Actually, the biggest spenders are pilots, believe it or not, because they just make a ton of money. They're kind of nowhere and everywhere all at once. You would think that they would have giant 401ks. They don't. They just spend. And it's like, it is one of those things. I think this is a good lesson for everybody too. The more you make, the more you should be saving, the more you should be investing. No one wants to go back to the time when they lived on $40,000, right? Like, that was not fun. But hey, like, if you're making into the six figures, you should be saving and investing a really good portion of that. Like, no designer purse is going to feel as good as being able to retire comfortably.
And also, if you just have a plan, no, like plan with your financial advisor and let's say, okay, let's come up with a plan and maybe every month you should put this amount of money away. And then what you're left with, you can say, well, if I want to buy the purse, I will. At least I know I've made these payments.
Absolutely, but just the whole spending down to the last dollar before paycheck hits or pay hits on Friday, that's a tough life to live long term. It's
And
just
that's something you do in your 20s.
totally, totally.
You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. There are men with no money, and then there are men with no money. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about 6 guys that have red flags that they're carrying when it comes to dating after divorce or just a relationship. My guest is Amanda Campbell. Amanda is a financial advisor with Wealth Spire Advisors. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we have 4 more men to talk about. And wait till you hear about the next one. You're going to laugh so hard, but you know it's true. We'll be right back. I was a stay-at-home mom when I got divorced. And when the divorce was final, I was left with no health insurance. It was really scary to me because I had been on my husband's excellent corporate plan for several years. And now I had to think about monthly payments, deductibles, rate increases, and more. I know I'm not alone in my experience, so if you're someone who's going to lose your health benefits when your divorce is final, I would highly recommend talking to Lorena Tomasini. Lorena is an insurance professional. She has been doing this for 18 years, and she can help you look at plans and figure out what's best for you. The name of her company is Malm Life and Health Insurance Agency, and you can learn more at MALM, malmins.com, malmins.com. I also want to tell you about a really great real estate agent in Chicago and the suburbs named Stacy Yesner. And Stacy was raised in the suburbs. She lives in the city now. She's lived in Chicago for over 20 years. She's a former social worker, so she knows the school systems and the housing markets in both the city and the suburbs. Love Stacy, really trust her. And if you want to learn more, you can find her at stacysellschicago.com. You can also find both Stacy and Lorena in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. And today I'm here with financial advisor Amanda Campbell. Amanda is an advisor and a vice president with, are you a vice president or like a partner? Managing director. I knew it was something big. With Wealth Spire Advisors. She's been a financial advisor since 2010. She specializes in helping women during and after divorce. And Amanda and I are talking about red flags to look for with men that you're in a relationship or you're dating. This is the funniest, and I can't say it without laughing. The cheap guy. And I wrote, the cheap guy might actually have a lot of money, but it's no different than dating or being with someone who doesn't have money because he won't spend it.
Amen. Like, there's just not much more to say about this. Ew, no. Like, just no.
Right. The cheap guy is the only guy who I would say don't date. The other ones, if you love the guy, it's okay. This is cheap is to me a big
No fly zone. No fly zone.
Yeah. Life is way too short to be cheap.
Life's too short. And
Okay.
being with somebody cheap is really embarrassing. Like, think about when you guys got to dinner. They're not going to tip
Awful.
well. Like, you don't, no. Yeah.
I know, but okay, let's just give the cheap guy for a second a break and say that maybe he has anxiety about money. Maybe he was raised in a household where he struggled financially, the family struggled. Now he doesn't know how to deal with his newfound wealth. I mean,
Totally.
I almost feel sorry for the cheap guy.
That's what it is, right? Everybody has a money operating system, beliefs, values that have been built from the moment they were on this planet up until where they are today, how they watched their parents handle money, grandparents, adults around them, how they've handled money. I get all that. This is one where I'm like, go to therapy. Like, you need to get out of this rut. You are not servicing anybody around you.
Mhm.
This one's
And if you are with a cheap guy, you need to have a conversation in a very nice way and say, honey, you're being cheap. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but I want to help us have a better quality of life
amen.
and go from there. Okay, number 4 is the guy who has to give a lot of money to his ex. I'm talking about lifetime alimony, big, huge child support checks. People don't realize, but that can really affect your relationship, even if you're in a second marriage.
Mhm.
Have you seen this in your business?
Absolutely. I think there's always, well, and always is a broad term, but there's usually a level of resentment, right? From, let's say we're dealing with husband in this instance, right? You're starting to marry or starting to date a guy who has alimony payments, child support payments, whatever it is. There's going to be some resentment, right? Like, oh, well, we could go to Aruba, but he has to pay his wife $4,000, his ex wife. Like, there is that resentment that I think builds over time, even if you think initially like, "Oh, I can handle this. I understand. We all have pasts." We're all still human though. Like at the end of the day, like, we're all still human and we make those comparisons in our head and we look at how life is panning out. Um, I think for this one, again, just having that upfront and real conversation about, "Hey, what goes out? What is your outflow each month, right? What alimony do you have to pay? How will that impact our life? Let's talk about what we want for our life." Again, if you get to that conversation, obviously not first date material, but
Well, okay, I will say my now partner and I moved in together almost 3 years ago. We've been together for 10. Before we moved in together, we sat down and had some really awkward conversations, and I was like, this isn't very romantic," but we had to have them. Who's gonna pay for what? What's your financial situation? What's yours? How much do you have? And we really were so glad we did it because we never fight about money. There's nothing to fight about. And the other thing I was going to say is that if you're marrying somebody who has to give somebody lifetime alimony or child support still, you have to respect it because I've been on the other end of that. So my ex-husband got remarried and it was a huge issue in his marriage. He's actually divorced now. And he said that the woman like was really upset every time he gave me money. She looked at everything and you know, it was a huge issue in their marriage. And I'm thinking, well, I'm a single mother with 2 kids. I mean, what do you think I'm doing with the money? So I've been on the other side, and I have a lot of resentment for that woman because it wasn't fair and it's not your business. If you're marrying somebody who's in a legal contract for alimony or child support, it's really not in your control. There's really nothing you can say or do.
correct. It is a legally binding contract. Like it's due. And I agree. I think the resentment forms on both sides because I definitely deal with women who are receiving those alimony payments and have husbands like, ugh, I have one who still writes a check. Like it just makes him feel really good. Like
Yes.
troll. So gross.
I
But
know.
and I hear from her, like, girlfriend's mad, sent the check. It doesn't matter. I don't care that girlfriend's mad. This is a legal binding document, right? It's a legally binding contract. But at the end of the day, girlfriend should have had, new girlfriend should have had that conversation with ex-wife about like, or ex-husband about, hey, this is something that I'm contractually obligated for the next X amount of years. Like, this is our life. This is part of our financial life. I can't have you being upset every time the 20th of the month rolls around. Like, we're not doing that.
And
Right.
the guy needs to stand up for himself and say, "If this isn't something that you're comfortable with, there's the door."
Here's the door because it's not going away.
Right. Okay, next one is the guy with no ambition. This is another guy that I don't like. So I always used to say, even when I was younger, I was never materialistic. I really wasn't. And I used to say, I could fall in love with anybody. I don't care if the guy's a garbage man or a banker making $1 million a year. I just want somebody who's happy with their life and their job. That's the most important thing. But if you have a guy who's sitting on the couch every night complaining about his job and not making money, that's when I have an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just makes everything miserable. Like, I have a client right now, we're working through her divorce. She goes to work every single day. She works in home health care. So she's doing very meaningful work for her community, like helping people every single day. Husband just like one day decided he wasn't vibing with work and now sits at home and really does nothing except for torment this poor woman. And it has just made her realize, like, even when I thought he was being ambitious, he was never actually taking a job that would stretch his mind or stretch his physical capabilities. It was always just something just safe enough where he could moan about it and complain about it, right? And she has told me, she was like, yes, I want a divorce now, but I think I was always unhappy with who he was because he has always been unhappy with himself.
Right. And if he's complaining about her, he just doesn't like himself.
Absolutely. So, this is a tough one, the no ambition. I mean, we're going nowhere fast.
Okay, last guy is the guy who says, let's merge our money. So a guy said to me once, what's mine is yours. And I was thinking, well, you don't have anything. So, I mean, what's mine isn't yours. That's not a good deal for Jackie.
Yeah, no, this is a red flag. Big red flag. I would say more so than the others. Um, yeah, no. I'm very, very upfront with my clients who are post-divorce, right, entering the dating world. I tell them before there's anything to talk about, before there's money on the table, let's just talk now about the fact that we will have a big discussion about you getting a prenuptial agreement, before or should you enter your second marriage. I have those conversations with my clients right when they start entering the dating field. That way, there are no surprises. No one's the bad guy. It's just, hey, this is what you need now. You advocated for yourself during the divorce. You ended up with a pot of money. We're not going to commingle that, right? We're going to be careful with it. We're going to make sure it still serves your best interest. So this one to me, let's merge our money. No, like hopefully she has a really good person in her court that's looking at her and saying stuff's going to stay separate.
Well, that's you, Amanda. That's
Mhm.
why your financial advisor is so important because she will not let you do that. And she can also talk to you about ways to have that conversation and tell your new spouse why you don't think that's a good idea. Like when I told you we had this conversation, we said we've all already been through a divorce and we both had like divorces that were really, really hard. I mean, I don't know any divorce that isn't hard, but we said, "We're not in this for the money of each other. We both are financially set on our own," which is leading me to the end of this conversation that I wanna talk to you about, Amanda, imbalances in financial situations. But we especially for a second marriage, there's no merging of money like there is in a first marriage. So I would highly, highly recommend not merging your money, even if the guy has a lot of money.
Mhm. Yeah, I cannot stress this enough. I think I personally think, and this is talking to attorneys, and a prenuptial agreement is for everybody, right? Like, I think anytime you're entering a marriage, and that is not to say that like you might decide, oh, everything should be split 50-50, right? I think at the end of the day, entering a marriage is a really big deal. What if you're 20, if you're 30, if you're 50, if you're 60? It's a really big deal. I think it is a very, very, very big deal if it's your second, third, so on marriage. Marriages don't get easier, right? Like the blending of life, the blending of families, the blending of money, it doesn't get easier. So you have to get smarter.
Now, people will argue with this, and their point will be like, well, if you're afraid to merge your money, then you must not really be in love. You want to have one foot out the door. I could not disagree more. And the reason I say that is because I'm living this and I am in a very happy, healthy relationship. And yes, we do have a foot. If we want to leave, we can leave at any time. But that's what makes it so good
Yeah.
because we know we can walk away anytime. When people start complicating things with money, it makes you want to stay because it's easier to stay because you know all your money's merged together and you don't want to have that complicated process begin. So people are in the relationship for the wrong reasons.
Absolutely. And I think the terminology use around a prenuptial agreement is it's just insurance. It's just insurance at the end of the day, right? Saying, "Oh, I don't want a prenuptial agreement. You don't really love me." That would be like, "Oh, I'm not going to get insurance on my life for my family because I'm not going to die." I don't know that. That's insane. But I've taken all the proper steps and I have the proper insurances in place to make sure God forbid something happens to me, my family is no worse off, right?
And the
Financially.
best news is if you don't use it. So you didn't use the insurance, you're fine. You
That's the
didn't
point.
use the prenup, but you spent $3,000 getting it or whatever. So what? Throw the money in the best money you ever spent.
It's insurance. You have it, you never, ever, ever want to use it, and that is how I explain it to women. Like, "Listen, this is not some big, scary, bad four-letter word. This is just insurance on your assets, on all of your hard work." And I agree with you, Jackie. I think it strengthens the marriage because now you know you're in it for love, not for finance, and there are a lot of people right now, who are making the decision to stay in a marriage for the finances.
Absolutely. They're terrified of leaving. Okay, I want to end this on a good note. And if this is something that's really, really important. We didn't even talk about respect. So if you're dating somebody who has no money, I believe that it can lead to disappointment, losing respect for the person, losing interest. And by the way, like the sex life suffers, you're not attracted to them. So you have to think about that too. Wait, I just said I was going to end this on a good note, and that's kind of like a downer. But I guess I guess the good news is that, and I want to, this is all of what Amanda does. If you are empowered and you know about money and you have your own money and you're supporting yourself and you're self sufficient and you don't need anybody's money, then you are in the best position to be in the healthiest relationship of all because you're not in it for anybody else's money and you're free to do what you want. And the person's going to have respect for you. You're going to have respect for the person and you're going to be on this like even level, not like, I have to be a little nicer to you because you have all the money and you're really supporting me. Who wants to live like that?
Literally nobody, nobody. I say all to all my clients, post-divorce to these women, like, let's just get you on your own 2 feet where you feel confident, empowered, gosh, beautiful, just so self-respecting. Let's see her emerge, and then she can go take on the dating world. Because she'll light it on fire every time. She doesn't need anybody, but she wants somebody.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I was thinking that's the promo clip for this podcast. Okay, Amanda, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I absolutely loved this conversation.
Oh, thank you. This was a fun one.
It was. So I want to tell my listeners if you liked what you heard with Amanda and you want to have a consult with her about working with her, you can find her either on the Wealth Spire Advisors website or you can find her on divorcedgirlsmiling.com in the trusted professional section. And you can also go to divorcedgirlsmiling.com to listen to more podcasts, read articles, or sign up for my free 30-minute consult. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and we'll talk to you real soon.